Test automation is a critical part of every project, and Selenium, still being the most preferred tool, when you start your career in testing, you're supposed to use Selenium somehow. And if you're using Selenium, you must know how to build a test framework. Hey everyone, I am Avnish and welcome to the Bite-Size Selenium tutorials. Today we are going to talk about Selenium and how you can set up your Selenium project. And we're also going to write a sample test in Selenium. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, click on like, subscribe, and notification bell to receive notification when we publish new videos or come live with experts. If you're watching this video on Instagram TV, go ahead and follow us. So let's start with this topic now. In this tutorial, we're going to use Visual Studio for creating our framework or writing our first test basically. And we'll be using C# as the development language. I'm assuming you have a little background in C#. Even if you don't have it, you would still be able to follow along. And I'm going to use a test website to run our test. You can use the same site, or maybe you can use any site that you want to. It doesn't really matter. Let's start with our project now. Since we're using Visual Studio, we'll create a new project and we will choose a class type library. Let's give it a name. We'll name it Selenium Bite-Size Tutorial. And we'll create this project. Okay, so now that we have our project, we'll do some renaming. We'll just rename this class to our first test, and as you have your first test class, we leave it as is. And now we need to import few things such as Selenium WebDriver and Chrome driver. We'll be using Chrome driver for this test session. Let's go ahead and browse the NuGet packages. You can, if you didn't follow along, you can just do a right click on the solution, click on manage NuGet package for solution. When you come here in the browse, just search for Selenium. So what you would find here is Selenium WebDriver from the Selenium committers. Go ahead and install it for this project. Once you've installed this, go ahead and search for Chrome driver. Install this as well. And one more thing. So in this tutorial, we are going to use MSTest. I recommend you to use MSTest because it gives us more feasibility and more features when you're using Visual Studio with Microsoft products. We'll use the Microsoft test adapter, and we're also going to install the test framework so that you can see our test and test results. Okay, now that we have our solution set up, we have the NuGet packages set up, we'll start writing our first test. We also downloaded the Chrome driver.exe, if you can see here. So first thing, let's rename our class to annotate basically our class as a test class. Not so soon, I think. We need to still import Selenium. We need to import Selenium Chrome. We also need to import the Visual Studio unit testing. Now, if you give start with the test class. This is how your test framework will detect if this class is a test class, and therefore in our test, let's say I'm going to do a login test. To be able to detect this as a test, we need to use test method annotation. Now, if you go ahead and use the test explorer from the test menu, you would see our project already has one test. So this test is our login test. If you run it, it would do nothing. It would just pass as is because we do not have anything else. Let's go ahead and add an assert and try to fail this test to check that we are on the right path. So we're expecting this test to be true, but we'll add false. Let's not write any error message here or exception and run this test. Now when you run this test should fail. Yeah. So we get the message assert is true failed on line 18. That's pretty intuitive. Okay, now we'll go ahead and start our test creation. We first need to import the WebDriver and create an instance of WebDriver. We'll use the Chrome driver here. Right? So let's start the WebDriver. Okay, we need to navigate. We use navigate and go to URL to open a particular URL with Chrome driver. Let's say we want to go to google.com and run this test. You can do a right click from here and also run this test as well. So right now, if you see my test didn't run, why so? Because the exception says no, or maybe it says unknown error. And it's basically because we have not defined the instance of our driver correctly. We do not have our driver, the Chrome driver, set in the environment path. We need to get the location of this and pass this as a variable to our Chrome driver. So what we will do is we'll open this folder. We have this Chrome driver available here. And where is it? It's in the solution folder. Let me open this folder and we can see that we have okay, I think you cannot see my screen. I will also share this. I'll share the screen. So we have this Chrome driver here. We move this over in our, we'll create a folder here and we name it driver and we'll paste our Chrome driver here. Okay, we couldn't get the driver yet. Let's copy it and put it into our drivers folder. Here it is. Now we just copy the location actually from here, and then we provide the path. do this. There's one more thing we should do here. Uh, when we are instantiating the driver, we should also quit it after we are done with our test. Let's run it now. I think I should share my screen. Okay, we still have this error here. Let's see why is it. Okay, so I have just updated the Chrome driver to the latest Chrome driver because my browser version was an updated browser version and the Chrome driver that we had was not updated. Now it should work. Let's open this and try to run this test again. Now you can see the web driver opened the Google page, and at the end of it, it also uh, destroyed this instance of Chrome driver. So disposing the Chrome driver evidence is also very important because otherwise you will have a lot of Chrome driver instances in your uh, task manager, which may eventually slow down the processing. Next step. So the next step would be to start our tests, write the first test and see how we can run the test. What we're going to do is instead of navigating to Google, we'll go to this URL, which is automationpractice.com, and then we will sign in and we'll check how we can validate that we are logged into the system. So first off, what we are going to do is let's close everything and open a new browser session and go to this site. You can see I'm already logged into this site. So what I'll do is I'll sign out and I'll show you what we will be doing. So we'll sign in with this account and we'll then validate that I'm able to see this name, which is my account name. And thus I can validate that this test is working. The sign in test is basically working fine. So first off, we will go to this page, and just after opening this page, what I'll do is I'll try to assert that I am on the correct page. That we can do by finding out the title of this page. So the driver instance can already store the title of the page. You can just call it and validate your title. So my title, if I open this automationpractice.com, is going to be my store, which is my store. So now let's run this test and check if this part still works fine. So the WebDriver started the session, went to this site, validated if the title did contain correct value, and it passed. Now let's try to fail this test again to see that we are writing the correct test. That's a good way to understand if you're writing your test right or not. So I'll change this to my store one. The expected value is my store one, but your title would be my store. So we are going to expect my store one, but found this. But I would also suggest, to instead of doing this, pass it as a variable, right? That would be the better way. Let's store this into a variable, which is my store one. Then I use this title here, and I say I expect the title to be this. Now if I run this test, this should fail now. It opened the Chrome browser, went to this page, and couldn't assert and failed. You see the test has failed now. Expected my store one, but found my store. But something that you should notice is that this WebDriver instance didn't dispose the web session, this Chrome browser session. Why did this happen? Because our assert failed here, and next off, the execution did not continue to the driver.quit. Now what we can do here is we'll add a test cleanup. I wanted to do this just to make you understand that this is how we should structure our test. So the test cleanup part would actually do the cleanup after the test is run. But right now this driver instance is not declared within this method, so we have to do a global declaration. Now we can use this. Let's try to run this test again and see if our driver instance is destroyed. The WebDriver opens the page and then does an assert, fails the test, and also closes the WebDriver session. That's working fine. Let's move ahead with our test now. We change the variable to match our variable, and we go to this page and we will find this element. This element sign in has a class login. So if we try to find it with the CSS selector, we see, okay, I think you guys would not be able to view this, but if I move it here, you can see that there are 3 elements which match login. And if I do a CSS selector, it would say 2 elements. Now what I can do is I know that this sign in is an anchor tag, or this node is an anchor. I can quickly write a CSS selector which would find this element, and it's basically a unique locator. I'll copy this and paste it here. So now what I'm going to do is I'll find this element by CSS selector, what I have to do is I have to click on this element. Once I have clicked this element, I'll be on this page where I need to enter email. The email is an input element and the ID of which is email. I think this should be unique, but you can test it. Basically, you can do an input ID equals this. You can see this is a pretty unique element, one of one, and then we can quickly use it to find our input element by ID, or not XPath, it should be ID, and the ID is email. What we're going to do is we're going to send keys into it. We'll write down that, what we need to send. We'll copy paste the username and password. Then we also want to find the password. We'll try to find the ID for that, and we'll send our password to that. So the send keys basically types any text that you send, you pass as a parameter here. Let's find out the password ID. Okay, this is the ID for password. We use this, and we also need to click on this sign in button. So the sign in button is basically a button which has ID as submit login. We'll do driver dot find element by ID, and the ID is submit login, and we do a click here. Pretty simple, right? Once we click here, this page would load, and we just need to validate that we are in the correct place. How can we do that? This anchor tag, which is my account, has a span node which says which has stored my name basically. So I'll do this, and not this. It was account, I think. Yeah. Yep. So again, using the CSS selector, I found this element, and I need to go to its child. This is how I go there. Now, once I've clicked this, I'll do a driver or find element by CSS selector, account span, and what next? The text would find the inner text of this element, and let's trim the trailing and leading spaces, and we will do a maybe equals, let's say trim.con equals, what was that, and I will give my name here. Okay, but this is still not correct. We need to assert this basically. Why are we even validating it? Why are we even declaring this? We just need to assert it, that it is equal to my name. Otherwise, what I'll do is I'll throw an error. Let's just pass this as a variable again. Count is this, and I expect it to be your count. Now I will say expected count. Oh, sorry, account, but found what? This. This is our actual, and this is what we are expecting. Now let's try to pass the username and password. I know my username and password, so I'll just quickly pass it here in the variable, in the parameters space. And next up, the password, it's a test password, test account, test password. Let me try to run this. So this web driver opened the web browser session, went to this page, then clicked on the sign in button, closed. Why did this happen? Let's go to the test result. It says no such element exception. Where? Here. So it was trying to find out the email element or the email input element, but it didn't find. Why so? Because when we clicked on the sign in button, it straight away went to this step where it was expecting this element to be present, but it wasn't. Now what we need to do here is we have to wait for that element. So I'll just put sleep here. I do not want to complicate this session. I'm trying to make it easy so that we'll discuss this later in the next session where we talk how we can add fluent weights, explicit weights, and implicit weight. But right now we just use the static sleep. So we do this, then we wait for that, enter our element, and then after clicking, we'll wait for this, and then we'll assert. Let's try to run this test now. We see our browser popped up. Now it has clicked on the sign in. It waited for 4 seconds, pasted the value, waited for 4 seconds. Again, it pasted the password, waited for 4 seconds, and it will click on the sign in button again now. And then it will wait again for 4 seconds and then assert my account value. Now, if you see this test passed, right? That's because we had added weights. Let's try to fail this test again. I am always inclined towards checking if the test would actually run fine. If it wasn't, if the things were broken on the website, we should always check that. So again, it entered password, it waited 4 seconds, then clicked on sign in, waited after waiting for 4 seconds. Now it waits 4 seconds and tries to validate the assert. But as you can see, it failed. Expected Avnish Pandey 1, but found Avnish Pandey. So that's how your test, your test is working. We can do a quick, a bit of improvements here. When we start our session, we can maximize our browser window. So we will do that, maximize, right? Let's start here. You see the test browser maximized, and now it's opening the session. The site here. It will again do the whole same thing. We're kind of repeating the actions after every step. But this, once you get used to it, you can do this quickly. Now you see that it has logged in and verified. So this is how you write a basic test. I hope this was helpful for you. You can do a lot of things here, but since this was the first session, I wanted to make it clear, simple, and very easy to understand. If you still have any questions, you can ask that to me in comments. Put your comments on YouTube, or you can put your comments in the Instagram post. Reach out to me and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Well, that's it for today. We'll be back soon with the next session. Thank you. Bye-bye.